Hello. Thanks for joining me today. Today I want to talk about how to provide dignity in more ways than one in supporting individuals in the IDD community. If this is your first time joining me, I am Shar Meekins, an excellent developmental disabilities nurse who has a passion and a desire to mentor nurses, provide training for direct support professionals, and support agencies, families, and individuals with developmental disabilities. So let's talk about dignity. Often when we hear the word dignity as caregivers, we assume we're talking about modesty, which that is a huge part of providing dignity to individuals that require significantly more help than those that are more independent. So, you know, when I went to nursing school, you learn a lot about dignity, and you learn how to provide care for a customer that you need to assist in, whether that be shower, dressing, toileting, however you need to support an individual. It's important that we give them dignity, that we cover them up. When we're caring for them, we're not exposing more parts of the body than necessary. When we're providing care, we're just helping that individual be modest as we are supporting them. So, hi Shelby. Great to see you. But there's a part of dignity in supporting an individual with DD that is really kind of my, well, I guess I'm going to even just say a pet peeve of mine. And as caregivers, we often take for granted that, especially if an individual is not verbal, and they don't have the same capacity to respond to us in words as we do with them. And we, for some reason, take for granted that it's okay to care for them and say honey and dear and sweetheart. And in fact, the other day, my husband asked me to go with him to a doctor's appointment. And it was my first time into this new clinic, and we walked in, and the medical assistant called him sweetheart or honey, something like that. And I turned to her and I said, I didn't realize that he was your sweetheart. And she just kind of shrugged it off, and it was like, oh, I say that to everybody. And I feel like it's so degrading, and it's not giving dignity for someone as a person. So what I tell new staff is we need to value a person's dignity, because a lot of times they don't have a lot of dignity left. And so what's the one thing we can give them that gives them dignity? And they all look at me a little puzzled, but I believe it's their name. And it is so important to use people we support. Doesn't matter if it's child or elderly person or a person with DD. It doesn't matter, that we need to be respectful and using their names. For example, one time I was introduced to a new customer, and somebody walked up to them and called them Buddy. And I was like, well, here's a teaching moment, right? So I addressed the new customer and I said, what would you, so-and-so, let's call him Jim, okay? I said, Jim, what would you like us as staff to, what name do you like to be called? And he said, well, Jim. And I said, very good. Just like I like to be called Shar. So I said, so it's interesting that this person just came in and said, hi, buddy. And I said, is that okay for you? Is that okay if someone calls you buddy? And he said, well, I suppose. And you could tell it was his form of, I don't know if he thought it was he had to comply to somebody else's words or what it was. And I said, no. If you really had your preference, if someone could call you Jim or Buddy, what would you want? And he said, Jim. I said, very good. So I really want staff to understand the importance of using the individuals' names that we support, because they're not ours. Again, I think so often we overlook dignity even by treating someone we support, no matter what age they are, as a child rather than as a peer, that someone just needs some extra support. And as I grow older, I know I'm going to need support, and I wouldn't want somebody calling me dear and honey and sweetheart, and I would want them using my name, and just as they would want me using their name. So, and there was another part of dignity. Oh, I know what I wanted to share. So also, dignity in supporting children. So there's this odd season as caregivers when you've cared for a child for many, many years, and all of a sudden they're moving from childhood into teenhood. And you've been used to being very affectionate, giving hugs and maybe rubbing their hair or patting their cheek. It's all those affection things that we do as grandmas and as moms and as caregivers to children. But there comes that time when moving into teenage, being a preteen, teen, that those gestures need to be set aside and be appropriate and be giving space, right? And for our kids that are verbal and we're dropping them off at school, they tell us that, right? Mom, don't be kissing me in front of my friends. But if you have a child with developmental disabilities, they may not be able to tell you that. And so we as the adults need to be aware and sensitive to our children's needs and not invading their space, and learning how to transition with them as they're maturing. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about dignity. And so all of us need to be aware that we're giving dignity, respect, kindness, compassion to every individual that we come across, even at the doctor's office. And by doing so, we are making a difference together. Thanks for joining me. Talk to you again soon. Bye.